There we go. Shalom Aleichem. Peace to you, brothers and sisters, in the name of our Messiah, and Hag Sameach Hanukkah. Happy Hanukkah. Here on the sixth blessed day of this festival, I just wanted to give you guys, just finish up where I left off yesterday, and just kind of focus on some of these important questions. Do I have making compromises within my life that are causing my faith to falter, where, I find myself more focused on me and what's going on in my life than on anybody else who's out there or that I've been approaching? So I'm trying to pick up here. Yesterday I talked a lot about the first chapter of the first Maccabees, which discusses the fall of Jerusalem and the Seleucid Empire. Particularly looked at what causes the fall and how compromise of our heart always leads to destruction. The large passage that I led, which was a lot of the problems of people going through, and it was just kind of a really rough thing. I just wanted to kind of focus yesterday through that dark, depressing chapter on, what is causing us in our own hearts, and what do we do ourselves that pulls us away from our relationship with God. And so today, I'm going to be focusing more on some happier notions, although I hope that it will still be just as convicting as we focus on, who our God is, where our hearts are. So as we, we're getting ready to leave the 10s, enter the 20s next week, we enter into this new time. I want us to just kind of just reflect on our own hearts and our own desires, and kind of just give ourselves a re-examine of our faith. So we will be picking up where we left off in the second chapter of the book of First Maccabees, where we find a man by the name of Matthias, who's a priest, a father who is zealous for the Torah and will not compromise when he's told to make an abominable hoping to keep the peace between Judah and, or particularly the city of Moedin and the Seleucid Empire. And so he runs his sword through him, much in the spirit of Phineas, calling on everyone to stay true to the instructions of the covenant and of the one true God. So we'll pick up in chapter 2, verse 19 of the first book of Maccabees. And Matthias answered and said with a loud voice, "If all the nations that are in the house of the king's dominion hearken unto him to fall away each one from worship of his fathers, and have made choice to follow his commandments, yet will I and my sons and my brethren walk in a covenant of our fathers. We will not hearken to the king's words to go aside from worship on the right hand or the left." And we listen in verses 27 through 28. "And Matthias cried out in the city with a loud voice, saying, Whosoever is zealous for the law and maintaineth the covenant, let him come forth after me. And his sons fled into the mountains and forsook all they had in the city." So I'm going to be hitting you with a lot of just verses right out of the second and third and fourth chapters of the book of Maccabees as we wrap up the Hanukkah story today. And I'm just really going to be focusing on this idea of a zealous passion to serve the one true God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of Israel, the God who came to us in flesh in Yeshua, Jesus, our Messiah. And so I'm going to go on to see the zeal of Messiah and his sons as they went out to fight against the injustice of Antiochus and his generals there. And Matthias and his friends went round about and pulled down the altars, and they circumcised by force the children that were uncircumcised, as many as they found in the coast of Israel. And they rescued the law out of the hands of the Gentiles and the hand of the kings, neither suffering they the sinners to triumph. Then we enter into one of my favorite sections in the book of Maccabees. Matthias is preparing to be gathered together with his fathers, and he goes through this listing to his sons as he bequeaths the what their calling of what they have taken up in to restoring Israel back to the way of God, following in the commands of Yahweh. And so he lists out this long list of heroes, much like we'd see in, if you're familiar with one of my favorite chapters of Hebrews 11, the great hall of heroes that is listed. And he writes this out, and I'll go ahead and just read it. And the days of Matthias drew near that he should die. And he said unto his sons, Now have pride and rebuke gotten strength, and a season of overthrow and the wrath of indignation. And now, my children, be ye zealous for the law, and give your lives for the covenant of your fathers, and call to remembrance the deeds of our fathers, which they did in the generations, and receive great glory and everlasting name. Was not Abraham found faithful in temptation, and was reckoned unto him for righteousness? Joseph, in the time of his distress, kept the commandment and became the Lord of Egypt. Phinehas, our father, for that he was zealous exceedingly, obtained the covenant of an everlasting priesthood. Joshua, for fulfilling the word, became a judge in Israel. Caleb, for bearing witness in the congregation, obtained a heritage in the land. David, for being merciful, inherited the throne of the kingdom forever and ever. Elijah, for he was exceeding zealous for the law, was taken up into heaven. Hananiah, Azariah, Mishael believed they and were saved out of the flame. Daniel, for his innocency, was delivered from the mouth of lions. And thus consider ye from generation to generation, that none that put their trust in him shall want for strength. And be not afraid of the words of the sinful man, for his glory shall be dung and worms. Today he shall be lifted up, and tomorrow he shall in no wise be found, because he is returned unto his dust, and his thought is perished. And ye, my children, be strong, and show yourselves men in behalf of the law, and for therein shall ye obtain glory. I just really love the challenge of that passage there, as he called out to his sons, and as they were to take that desire throughout Israel to say, hey, we will not falter on the way. Just as when things got rough for those of our forefathers, we also will take up the torch, and we will run and not be weary. We will be strengthened by our God to carry out everything that he has commanded us to do, and we will not fail. We can see by this that Judah took this to heart, and he gives the call to the small brigade of soldiers. And Judah said, it is an easy thing for many to shut up in the hands of a few, and with heaven it is all one, to save by many or by few. For victory in battle standeth not in the multitude of a host, but strength is from heaven. Also, in verses 58 and 59 of chapter 3, he would say, And Judah said, Gird yourselves, and be valiant men, and be in readiness against the morning, that ye may fight with these Gentiles that are assembled together against us, destroy us and our holy place. For it is better for us to die in battle than to look upon the evils of our nation and the holy place. Judah fully held this zeal, and because of his relationship with the Almighty, the proof that Yahweh is with Israel, Judah's words of encouragement and prayers as true now as they did back then. Remember how our fathers were saved in the Red Sea when Pharaoh pursued them with a host, and all the Gentiles shall know that there is one who redeemeth and saveth Israel. That's 1 Maccabees 4, 9, and 11. And he saw that the army was strong, and he prayed and said, Blessed art thou, O Savior of Israel, who didst quell the onset of the mighty man by the hand of thy servant David, and didst deliver the army of the Philistines into the hands of Jonathan the son of Saul, and his armor bearer. Shut up this army in the hand of thy people Israel, and let them be ashamed for their hosts and their horsemen. Give them faintness of heart, and cause the boldness of their strength to melt away, and let them quake at their destruction. Cast down with the sword of them that love thee, and let that know thy name praise thee with thanksgiving. That's 4:30 through 33. And because of his faith and our Lord's sovereign protection, they struck down 5,000 opponents and took back the temple that day. It is here where we can go on to read the most notable section of the Hanukkah story. As they would go through, they would walk through the temple that was destroyed, purged. We read in 1 Maccabees 1 where, as I read yesterday, the king came through. He tore out the gold right off the walls, desecrated the altar, pulled out every treasure he could, and they walk into just this destruction, it's a mournful sight to even see. But they walk in and they say, now, today here on the 25th of Kislev, we will take back the temple. We will rededicate it to Yahweh. No longer will it be the house of Zeus that was pulled away from us. We, the people of Israel, will chase after our God. And so they would go through and they relit the menorah. They rededicated. They made, and since they could not celebrate Sukkot, they went through and had an 8-day festival, which we celebrate every December, starting on the 25th of Kislev. That's why it's always moving around on the calendars there. That we celebrate this feast of dedication. And this is why we celebrate, because God saw fit to take these no-name ragtag priests with no military experience and drive out the empire, because they said, we will not yield to the flesh, but stand firm in our covenant of the Almighty. So we gathered together. So we gathered together, and you can say, so that we can say, I am keeping the faith. Just as one of my favorite passages in the Bible, My Life Verse, that I ask myself every day, am I keeping the faith? Have I run? Will I get to the end? Will God be able to say, you have run the race, you have kept the faith, welcome, here is the treasure I lay before you. And I pray you're standing firm like our fathers did in Matthias' benediction, that you pray like Judah as you enter into battle against the flesh and principalities. If not, I can think of no better time to really rededicate yourself to God than this season of dedication, where we take the time to remember who we are, people called by God for the place of living out His light and sharing it with the world. So often the story of Hanukkah is focused only on just this lighting of a single 7 candles we lay 8 there on our Hanukkahs here. I'm lighting my menorah here, which is just 7. But we focus on, this myth of a miracle happening, of light that could not stand. And what that myth shows is that God works through people. So I pray that we, as we remember the dedication of the temple, rededicate ourselves, our earthly temple, to God. Or if you have never made a profession of faith, here is a great time, for the greatest light, Jesus our Messiah, was conceived in the time, and he is the true cleanser of our physical temples here. So if not, I ask that you confess with your mouth and believe in your hearts in the risen Son, that you will walk zealously with your new faith as his ambassador to his dark world and bring heaven to earth. So, as I close out here, I just pray Yahweh bless you and keep you. Yahweh will make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. And Yahweh lift his face upon you and give you his perfect peace. Shalom, brothers and sisters. And happy Hanukkah.